Hi, everyone. Welcome to the USU podcast. This is Julie Riesler. I am really, really excited to be here today with you and introduce you to a real wonderful, beautiful soul, an amazing woman. Let me tell you a little bit about Katya first, and then you'll get to meet her yourself. So Katya Slavinskaya is our esteemed guest today. She is a health coach, an astrologer, yoga teacher, writer, and speaker on the topics of human potential and development. She's also a food addict in recovery. She is a sister from another mister. For over 20 years, she battled this very difficult eating disorder while not knowing she was sick. Like many, she thought the problem must be the spiritual and personality levels, must be on those levels, and tried to solve it on those levels until she learned about the biochemistry of food addiction. Today, she teaches about the pivotal relationship between how we feed ourselves and the fulfillment of our potential. She is a badass woman, also the host of the podcast, Curb the Binge, and I was grateful to be one of her guests, and I'm so excited to have a very deep, authentic, real conversation with you, Katya. Thank you for being here today.
Absolutely, Julie. Thanks for having me. It's an honor and it's just fun.
Yay!
Too. Yeah.
Well, I feel like there is a lot to unpack, and I want to ask you. I have all these questions, but the first thing I always like to start out with is this idea of being your U.S. you, your U.S. you. What is that about? What does that look like? Feel like? How have you gotten there?
I love that question, Julie. I love that question. That's really been the crux of my journey in a lot of ways because, I spent the first, I would say 28 years of my life not really knowing who I was, who Katya was at all. And I was the kind of person who would get in a relationship and, it could be partners, but also a friend, like a bestie, or, if I was really close with a parent in younger ages. And I would just kind of take on the flavor of whoever they were. When I was really young, when I made friends, if I had a bestie, I would start talking like them. I would start, like, it was noticeable. I would start dressing like them because I didn't know who I was. It was really pretty remarkable, actually, the extent to which that was the case for me. And then, I realized something that my life didn't have a direction. Like, I couldn't go anywhere because my vehicle didn't have it's like if the ego is a person, if the personality is a vehicle to get us to get our soul purpose fulfilled, right? And I didn't have one of those. Like, my ego wasn't developed. So, there's all this stuff we say about the ego, like it's not, we try to transcend it or something. But if we don't actually have a kind of finessed, honed ego structure, then we don't actually have a vehicle to take us. And this is all kind of, things that I learned when I studied astrology and, more of my kind of metaphysical work. And so I didn't have that. And then I would have these flashes, because I think this is often how transformation happens, is that, it's like we're on our way to becoming who we are, but before we actually become it full on, there are these little periods. I don't know if you experience that too.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
right?
Oh, yes.
You get like a flash. You're like, oh my God, like I can be this magnificent being.
Yeah.
And, maybe that lasts a couple of months, or that lasts, a couple of weeks or something. And then it like slips away and you're like, where the hell did that go? I want that back.
Yeah.
But you don't know how to embody it yet. Right.
Oh boy. Yep.
And then it's like, yeah. And you have to go on this whole journey to be like, well, what are the actual day by day, like steps and tools I can take to embody that? So that's what my life was like. And then when I was about 27, 28, I started to go really really deep into certain kinds of transformation work. I started learning more astrology. I did a lot of shamanic work, and I just had an opening. I said to, to the universe, to my guides, to the, all the work that I was doing, I just said, I need it to be now. Like, I can't wait anymore. And, I'm kind of a balls to the wall kind of person, but so I don't recommend that for everybody necessarily. It wasn't the slow and gentle path, but that's the path that I took. And I just said, I want it now. And you know what? The universe delivered. It was the most intense couple of months of my life, but I've never had that feeling since then of, I don't know who I am. And you know what, in that process, to answer your question, Julie, about what that means to me, the USU, is I realized that, like, it's like so beyond what our cultural filters are about what is pretty and what, what is acceptable and what is, what we can handle and what we feel comfortable with. Because who we are authentically is like in your face sometimes, or it's scary, or it's gruesome, or it's, it's like we have everything inside of us. And to become the meest me, I had to embrace all those parts, and again, in the service of this higher thing, the purpose that I was here to do. It wasn't just about like, I want to be my meest me just so that I can like peacock around, so that's a little bit. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, no, that's powerful. And I'm thinking, well, and part of that I heard, sometimes it's who you're not, if you're not being yourself. I can relate to that. I was just thinking about how powerful we are as human beings. Sometimes one of the things that I've studied is the impact of nonverbal communication, literally being around other people. And you were saying, picking up on their speaking patterns and how they were dressing. And I'm thinking, even this is what I think can happen in our society today. If you're not conscious, you can pick up on other people's speaking or ideas, or, it could be thought of as that mass consciousness. It's a little bit of a jump, but it sounds like you took yourself kind of out of that to really look at, okay, what am I here for? And show me how to be that. So I think that's extraordinary. That's part of the reason I love doing these interviews, is to inspire anyone listening, no matter where you are. There's never a lost moment, and you can always step into that place where you can just let go of the veil and let go of what, isn't you, and really step into who you are, which, as you said, sometimes it's not the pretty pose, or I so relate to that. It's fantastic. I am curious because, well, there's a lot of things I'm curious about with you. I want to talk about astrology, metaphysics. I'm like, oh my gosh, I know this is not just for me, this episode, but I'm like, well, we might come back to that. We share a lot, I think, a lot of things in common. And one of the areas that, man, I got to tell you, we can't talk about it enough, is the whole area around food addiction. And would just love to dive into that with you a little bit and understand your eating disorder, and then how you shifted from there and where you are today. Because that will really help, I think, a lot of people that tune in, or someone they know they could help.
Yes, please. Julie, I'm so excited to talk about this. There are layers, and there's like every day there's more that I'm discovering, and I just feel like it's a spiritual journey. The path of food addiction is a spiritual journey, I find. And, so I can't remember if I was 8 or 9 or 10, but it was around there when I had my first binge. And I remember, and it was so crazy, Julie. I was just writing about this morning, that, what led to it was I was home alone. I was sitting in front of my bookshelf, and I said to myself, I want to be smart. That's what I want to be. That was like my highest goal. And I went straight to the goal. I saw all these beautiful books on my shelf, and the shelf kind of lit up like an otherworldly object. Books were my favorite thing. And I said to myself, I want to be smart. I want to feel my intellectual power. And I want to get there. I want to get to that place of whatever smart is. And I made a list. It was my first to-do list of my life. And that list, I don't remember what all was on it other than one thing. And that one thing, this is coming from like an 8, 9, or 10-year-old's brain, was read 9 books every day, per day,
Wow.
right? And I was like, what was I thinking? I don't know. But like, this was the standard I had for myself.
Wow.
And of course, when I looked at that list, a part of me went, I'm never going to do that. That's completely unreasonable. And rather than like changing it or softening a bit or taking a gentler approach or modifying it to be something I could do, I took that to be an authority, that ink that was on the paper that I myself had written, but I took that to be an authority and I said, I can't live up to that. I'm just not going to try. And I did something that I had never done before. And it was like I was guided by a force. I walked to the kitchen. I opened the cupboard. I took out the bag of dried pineapple and I just started eating. And after I ate one, I ate another and I ate another. And I was watching myself. The observer was there. And it was like, what are you doing? But it wasn't condemning. It was just like observing and curious. And it was like, okay. But what I was noticing was that feeling, that overwhelm of putting pressure on myself and feeling like I couldn't live up to my own expectations and my own standards was fading away the more I ate.
Yeah.
And so, yeah. And that became my habit. It was like every day when, my parents worked a lot, bless their hearts. We immigrated to this country when I was really young, and my parents were working just to hold up the fort. And I was home alone sometimes, and I would that's what I would do. I would binge and I would watch TV. And it took me decades. It took me like literally until just now, I'm still unraveling it, to understand the original wounding, which was I was putting pressure on myself to reach the goal without realizing that actually I could just enjoy the process and life could just be fun, And I know that many of us addicts, because I've spent so much time in the circles of food addiction and binge eating, so many of us share that perfectionism and those high standards for ourselves. And I've heard so many other people say, if I can't do it perfectly, I'm not going to try.
Yeah.
And so that was the disease, and it wasn't, even the wording of disease, it's like, really, at the end of the day, it was a misunderstanding, and it was the lesson that I had to learn. But Julie, what I'm realizing is that for every person, food addiction, there's it's a key to a big, big puzzle.
Yeah.
And when you put that key in the lock, I know that was a mixed metaphor, but when you put that key in the lock and turn it, your whole life opens, right? Yeah. It's like, and it's your own unique riddle. No one can solve it for you. Someone can help, a good coach, a good guide can help, but everyone's is different. So.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. I mean, I couldn't agree more. I'm just sitting here thinking about it, that, it's amazing to me, everyone's experience. And for those listening who've struggled with food addiction, your experience, Katya, my experience, we're all individuals. So it's all going to be, as you said, I love that. Like it's individuated. And it's that individual riddle to solve. I love how you said that. And I found, it's taken years to unravel, and still I could feel it today. Earlier, I was just feeling not restless in a bad way, just a little bit of like, I have to do this and I want to do this, like excited and focused and goal oriented. And what did I want to do? I have, things that work for me, but I wanted to go eat that right then. I was like, oh, I want to make that now. Yeah. And I actually and I was annoyed with myself for not going. This is so funny. I felt like 3 people. And I did a check and I'm like, damn it, I'm not hungry, which is always a bummer.
Mm.
I don't know if you relate to that, but there's like,
Yeah.
when I am actually hungry or it's a mealtime, usually I'm very excited because it's like,
Yeah.
yay, that's a time to
Yeah.
eat, because I love
Oh,
eating
yeah.
and I enjoy eating yeah. So
Me too.
talk about, I relate to that. Talk about your, maybe that recovery, or where how you've kind of solved that riddle for yourself. I think people listening in, if they haven't struggled or, some sort of using or abusing food, most of us know somebody that has. And,
Mhm.
you don't get pulled over for eating M&Ms is usually it's not a joke. I mean, you don't, but I think sometimes you should, because I felt under the
Yeah,
influence. Um,
absolutely.
so yeah, talk to us a little bit. I'd love to hear your story and
Thank you.
how you got to where you are.
Well, you know, it's difficult to know exactly where to begin, because from that moment that,
Yeah.
that I had my first binge, um, it was like from that moment, that's when the journey began.
Yeah.
And, before that, it's like I have, alcoholism in my genetic history.
Yeah.
And, if you wanted to take a reincarnational perspective, you could say, who knows what happened in a past life? It's like,
Yeah.
you don't really know when it started.
Right.
But in this lifetime, in this period that I remember, I know it was, it was like that binge started it. And I think I always knew that sugar didn't work for me.
Mm-hmm.
I got that hit pretty early on. And
And how doesn't it work for you?
well, it makes me crazy, like literally I become like an insane person who can't keep track of
Yeah.
things, like I'm just, and there are so many ways uh, of defining this. It's interesting because, from like a food addiction, chemical food addiction perspective, it would be like, oh, your biochemistry is one of food addiction. Then there's, the work of Dr. Abravanel, who wrote The Body Type Diet and Lifetime Nutrition Plan, which is an old book,
Right.
and I don't know how many people still read it, but it's so interesting because he divides the people into 4 different body types. And he would just say, like, the thyroid types, they can't handle sugar, and caffeine. And I'm definitely that body type. So it's like, that's another perspective. But for whatever reason, sugar is a street drug to me.
Yeah.
Caffeine is a street drug to me. Flour of any kind is a street drug to me. I can't eat one bite. Like, I can't do the one cookie thing. I know that some people can. I'm just like, I'm a maniac. I will eat the whole box.
Yeah.
And, and it's so normalizing to hear other people be like, yeah, I used to eat half a gallon of ice cream.
Yeah.
It's like,
Absolutely. No, and I appreciate you sharing that. And for those who are watching, you're so healthy and vibrant and radiant. And I think it's important, especially when you're not wearing it maybe anymore, you're not wearing it to, I always find to say, yeah, there is no one Oreo cookie. There is no one. There's never been one. Never, 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 never. I can't even in my mind picture just one. I literally, if I were to like visualize, okay, I'm gonna take one. I can't even imagine that, because I don't know. The pattern is such that and it's just, it's not possible for me either. I'm so with you, and appreciate you just saying so honestly and openly. And I agree with you when you say it, it like loses its power. But many, I mean, many of our brothers and sisters out there struggle with this. I know it. I mean, I see it. You can see it,
totally.
you feel it. What are some of the things that have really helped you to shift your relationship with food, with your
Yes.
body, to where you are today? I know you're
Yeah.
coaching, speaking, guiding.
Yeah.
To me, it's miraculous when I think about what you've gone through. I know I feel that way with
Yeah.
myself. I'd love to
Yeah. I
hear
feel
about
that
you.
way with you too. Yeah. So thank you. So it's kind of like, you know, I knew that the sugar didn't work for me. But I was always trying to find my own way out of it with diets, with cleanses. That was my big thing. I'm going to do another cleanse, you know, and I've been a yogi for a long, like a yoga practitioner for a long time. So I said, okay, I'm cleansing, you know, and it was like, that's just part of who I am. It's part of my life. But then at some point I realized like, no, I have a problem. Something's different. And so I started to work with it. And I had one shamanic experience where it became very clear to me that I just couldn't eat sugar and flour. Like I couldn't live my life if I ate those things because for whatever reason, it wasn't clear to me the reason, but I knew that I couldn't. And so I tried to stop. But what happened was I went onto like a kind of paleo diet. And then I started eating like tons of protein. Like I was eating peanut butter out of the jar,
Oh yeah.
you know, like half the container at a time, you know, or I would
Yes, I
like,
actually do know. Like, I don't want to interrupt you, but I'm like, yep, there's certain things like, yep, can't have that around either. Yep.
totally. And, you know, and I would make this like flatbread out of garbanzo bean flour and I would just eat it. It was like, it was bread, you know, I didn't know it, but I thought, oh, it's, you know, it wasn't paleo exactly, but you know, I thought it's not carbohydrates exactly. It's not a grain. So, you know, and I would binge on that. But anyway, so I went, you know, like whipped cream and fruit. I would just eat a ton. And then I was like, okay, what's wrong? Like this, I'm not eating the sugar and the flour and that's something's better, but this is not okay. Like you know, it's leading me into a dark place. By that time I had already started Curb the Binge. By that time I was already coaching people, you know, and I was coaching people with what I knew. I was coaching people with the more spiritual piece, the personality stuff, you know, learning how to find what our purpose is in the world and align ourselves with that rather than, you know, negative thinking and trying to be someone we're not and things like that. But I was still having major issues with food. And actually, Julie, you know, it just continued to be a process where I went on Bright Line Eating for a while, which is Susan Pierce Thompson's program. And I love her. She's a dear friend of mine. I really support her work and all the science, the research that she's done on the subject. And her book, Bright Line Eating, is something I really recommend. But then honestly, I had to go into 12-step, you know, that nothing was strong enough for me. And so I've been in a 12-step program and having that has been the biggest support for me. And what I will say, and I think this is huge, is that once I got the food taken care of through 12-step, I was able to start really diving into the emotional work, really start doing the personality and spiritual work in a way that, you know, to a whole nother level. So, yeah.
Well, again, so appreciate your vulnerability. And I think it's important just to hear it's not like, okay, this diet, and for some that might, you know, that actually might work. There are some people out there that are not addicts or that have the experience. My experience and story is very similar to yours. And it's funny. I was laughing at your garbanzo bean flour story. I mean, over and over again, I'm like, yeah, no, flour of you could take anything and mush up. It doesn't matter because it feels and looks like bread. And I do the same thing. My body, it's hard for it to have one. Whereas, you know, if I have a big green salad, I'm not usually, you know, I don't need to eat 15 of them.
Yes.
So just listening, but I love your story and your journey and that you were coaching. You don't have to like, I know for me, and I'm assuming you're in the same way and having 12 steps in my background too. It's like, we're not recovered, but you can still coach and guide people because wherever you are, that might be in a place beyond where that person is and where they want to be. And I think, you know, getting from I'm going to read 9 books a day, goal-oriented perfection to like where you are today and how you're able to live, it's quite extraordinary. That's a lot of transformation that you've done.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that's so beautiful that you talk about that with coaching, because I've never known a person who's gotten there. Not one
Yeah.
person, you know? And I don't mean just food, like with life, you know? Like
Yeah.
I don't know one person who's like, okay, I'm in Valhalla, like,
Yeah.
I mean, now I'm going to disappear. I don't know, I've never
Right.
seen that. And my coaches are just folks that I resonate with,
Right.
that are a little bit more like they've ridden the bike a little longer. They're a little more in the rhythm,
Yeah.
and then I can, I've been blessed to be able to do that for other folks. And so that's all.
That's so great. No, that's
Yeah.
so, so great. I love that example, the metaphor. I think it'd be really interesting to hear more about, if it's okay, take a little bit of a turn, because you were talking about your shamanic experiences.
Mhm.
And what you've been doing in the astrological world. I'm very interested. I hope others tuning in are too.
Yeah.
This is like, all right, I cannot help myself. There's so much curiosity to talk about. It's
Mm.
always interested me, and just to learn more. Like, what does that look like? What does that mean? Talk about your experience with shamanic ventures and soul adventures, and what that's opened up for you.
Mm. Thank you. So, it's interesting because I never planned on getting into metaphysical work. I was actually very afraid of it. My very, very good friend, he was actually, my closest friend in college, was the astrologer Adam Summer. And that was before he was an astrologer.
Oh wow.
And now he has, a big successful podcast. And he's one of the big astrologers out there on the scene right now. And I'm so lucky to have known him for that long. And but it was, at the time, I was a skeptic from New York City. I was like, somehow had found myself in Boulder, Colorado, going to Naropa University, like the one Buddhist university in the country. Everyone was studying like horticulture or, yeah, meditation. Everyone had to do meditation. Like no matter what your major, you had to learn to meditate in the first year. And so I kind of got like pulled into metaphysics kicking and screaming. Like part of me wanted to go, obviously I enrolled into Naropa and everything, but part of me was just like, oh, like, what am I doing? This is like so woo woo. I just want something concrete. You know, um, and it took me a while to even get my grounding in that world, but it was like one of those things where how like something just keeps showing up in your life
Yeah.
to the point where you can't ignore it. And at first you're like so annoyed. You're like, oh my God, get away from me. Get away from me. And then it's like, okay, clearly I need to look at you,
Right.
because you just like keep on showing up. And that's what it was like with astrology. That's what it was like with shamanism. And so I started, I was just like, okay, all right, I give up. I'm just gonna get my feet wet with this. So astrology kind of started to, well, it's debatable which happened first. They kind of paralleled each other. But, shamanism is an interesting thing right now because it's growing.
Yep.
And, folks who have read Lynn Twist's book, The Soul of Money, have you read that?
So funny. I just missed meeting her. I'm part of the Illuminate Film
Oh,
Festival in Sedona, which highly recommend all films on living consciously. And she was the headline speaker. I had my son's uh, fifth grade activity, so I was here. But I just listened to her on Super Soul Sunday. I love her, and I
uh-huh.
love The Soul of Money. So anyhow, I'm
Okay.
very into Lynn Twist. Yes.
Yes. Okay. So she writes in that book about how, the prophecy of the indigenous cultures coming together with the Western cultures because both have been driven to the point of extinction
Yeah.
for their own reasons,
Yeah.
right? Um, and so that I really see that happening right now with, uh, we're so blessed to have access to indigenous wisdom in a way that we never have before. And and so with shamanic work, there are so many different styles and different ways. I mean, there are, guides and healers and practitioners who work with plants.
Right.
And there are those, and plant medicine. And there are those who do not, who just, do shamanic practice without any so-called, or plant, without any plant intervention or anything like that. And so, and many folks are going to South America to receive healing and things like this. And I didn't do that, but I was blessed with a lot of just access to folks that were doing shamanic work. And it was the kind of thing that once I stepped into it, I realized that it was like, oh, this work addresses a whole section of life that like our Western culture does not address.
Yeah.
Like we don't talk about it.
Yeah.
We don't talk about the soul, the health of the soul.
Right.
We don't talk about connecting to the soul.
Right.
And I want to include all wisdom and religious beliefs and spirituality traditions and, whatever belief set we come from, we each have that part of us that's, not the body. It is the body and that everything is one, but it's that part that is eternal.
Right.
And so, I just was fascinated because it was like, okay, here's this kind of work, shamanism, that actually invites us to wake up our soul and ask our soul, like, okay, what are you doing right now on this planet?
Yeah.
Like it's more than just like getting up, eating breakfast, going to work, going to the bathroom, going to sleep. Like there is more to this story,
Oh yeah.
There's a reason you came. And that was the doorway for me to access the reason why I came. In my felt sense. Like when I was doing shamanic work, I could actually feel and communicate with my soul and live from my soul and see, like, it was like a remembering, like a remembering, oh, this all makes sense. This is all one story. This isn't random stuff, And then the astrology piece, Julie, has been so helpful because in astrology, it's like, it's very much a science, it's very, very much a science. It's very structured and there are very traditional concepts, it's not like people just making up whatever. No, right. It's, this has been handed down for thousands and thousands of years. And so when you look at someone's chart, their birth chart, it's a map of their life. Yeah. It's a map. Of what they came here to do and who they are and how the gifts they have to carry that out. And so after having experienced that in my soul of feeling my purpose, I was then able to look at my chart and actually start to get language around it and concepts around it. And now it's like my life doesn't feel like all lost anymore. I have reference points, I'm like, oh, I know where I need to go. I know right now where I'm going wrong and I know what to do to get on path. And, and so that's there, we can get into astrology so much deeper and I hope we do. But that's just a little bit, it's just a lay of the land. It's a map of your life. I wouldn't want anyone to live without one.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. We need like a second or third, like super long session. Yes. It's interesting. I've worked with a couple different astrologers. I'm going to make sure to put your information below because I highly recommend, and we'll chat after. Love to do mine with you because everyone picks up on different aspects, but I will say it's been very powerful to look at. I've done both the Western and the Vedic. I know there's different ways of doing it, and it is like a map. For me, it was a lot of confirmation, and that's what I'm hearing for you too. This confirmation of there's purpose, and sometimes I think we can get so on autopilot in life that it does feel like, all right, I got to pick up my kids, I got to go do this, I got to go to Trader Joe's, I got to go here, I got to make this, and it's like, wait a minute, there's way more. Totally. way more than that. And I know for me, it's helped anchor me and rooted me to know, oh, I know my purpose now. And then when I'm out with my kids doing stuff that can feel very like, not as fun little activities, errands, those things, it's like,
Yeah.
that's part of the situation, but that is not it. That's not all of it.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
yeah, that I love what you said, that it's a map. And yeah, if you're listening and this intrigues you, we'll have your information, because I know that that's part of what you do. And love that it's come from a place of your own discovery for yourself. And,
Yeah.
it's interesting, at the Illuminate Film Festival where they had Lynn Twist this year, I last year got this amazing ability. I, crossing the road, of course, ran right into someone who's a real incredible shaman, healer. We ended up connecting, and he was so gracious. We met a couple times and did these incredible healing sessions and gathering things nearby. And I don't even know, I don't remember. I have a little packet that I still use when I meditate, but there's so many different ways to access our higher being, our inner self, our high, whatever you call it, your soul. And I think it's definitely called for that we start to bring those, the Eastern, the Western, all of the traditions in together to meet in the middle. I think it's so important what you're doing. Really important.
Thank you, Julie.
So,
And you as well. Yeah.
thank you. Well, goodness, lady, I could keep like, we need another chat. I'm like, just
I
the two of us. And then
know.
this has been really, it's been so fun. And I just, it's so clear how passionate and connected you are to who you are and what your purpose is. And it's so clear that you're here to guide and help and heal and work with people in finding their own soul purpose and moving through food addiction. And that is no joke, but the beautiful thing is it's possible. It really is. And you're a testament to that. All
It
right.
is. Yes.
Any last words intuitively that you feel like you want to share with everyone listening, just words of wisdom or whatever's coming up? Because I know you're highly intuitive. I'm going to go into that one.
Well, I have one piece which is more pre-planned and not intuitive, and then a piece that is intuitive, which is, okay, thank you for the space and the invitation. And the not intuitive thing is that, I wanted to offer something for our listeners.
Thank you. Awesome.
Yeah. And so I do something called a life purpose package, where I work with folks in a 4-session package. It's 4 sessions over 4 weeks typically. And it's amazing. We go into astrology, we go into the Enneagram, we go into food, because food is important for everyone, even if, there's no addiction going on. And we go into belief changing, and so it's very, very powerful. And I want to offer a discount,
awesome,
and a variety of payment methods to make this really accessible and workable for folks. So if you just go onto my website, it's katya.coach. So instead of .com, it's just katya.coach, KATYA.coach. And then it's one of my services, the Life Purpose Package. You can either go on the services tab on the right, or if you scroll down my page, you'll see the services and you'll see the Life Purpose Package there. And if you go there, you can read about it. And then the coupon code I want to give everyone is LOVE YOU. So it's just lowercase, LOVEYOU. Awesome. And then you'll go to, you'll get your discount. So the Life Purpose Package. And then the thing that I want to say that's just coming from my heart is that, for everyone listening, your life is a mystery, a conundrum to be solved. It's a riddle, and it's fun if you get into it that way. Once you start getting into it, once you see the riddleness of it, the puzzle, then the pieces start to come together, and then it starts to get really exciting. So, take heart, because it's just a fun journey. And that's all.
Awesome. My gosh. Thank you.
All right.
So much. And I will put all the info in the
you.
show notes so people can look for the Life purpose package and the discount. I love that. Love you. That's
Great.
so cute. And
Oh,
thank you for just being so vulnerable and authentic. It shines right through. If you're watching this on YouTube or in video, you'll see it, but hopefully you hear it too. And Katja, you're just an awesome, badass woman out there.
oh,
Genuine lady, really doing some awesome things. I'm really grateful to have had you
thank you,
today.
Julie. Thank you. Thank you. Right back at you.